Yeah, hi, my name's Paul Archer. Welcome to my short video clip on the 10 top tips to pass the J07 Supervision in a Regulated Environment examination. Notoriously the hardest exam in the whole suite of CII papers. Why is it difficult? Well, because there's a load of technique that you need to adopt to make it work for you. So I'm going to outline these for you. So let's head in down there first of all. There's a picture of me and the contact details if you want to contact me to talk more about it. There's me doing my day job, which is speaking training. I specialise in sales and sales management, hence the J07 is an exam that I've worked with for over 20 years now. So let's take a look at the top tips and show you hints and tips. The first one for you is a little picture now, a retail team. Here we have a financial advisor working for a bank, effectively, interviewing a young couple there looking probably to buy their first home and all in love and all those good things. Now, the whole point behind this first tip, though, is you need to put yourself into context for this exam. Whatever the job you do, you need to get rid of that job and become a supervisor, a regulated supervisor, who has a branch team, really. Your people are in branches. They are geographically spread around a particular area. They're financial advisors, and you have all the pressures that go with that. So you have to jump in the car, you have to go and see people, you're in the face-to-face environment. That's the environment that they expect you to be in for this exam. And on the same basis, you are an all-singing, all-dancing manager. You manage financial advisors, not mortgage advisors. You manage financial advisors, be they restricted or be they IFAs. They're the people that you manage. Now, as an all-singing, all-dancing manager, you do everything. Now, remember, this is the context for the exam itself. You do everything in your job. You recruit, you train, you coach, you motivate, and eventually you fire people. You can't outsource stuff. You have to bear in mind that you do everything in the job that you do. Know your lists, steps and sequences. Now, the whole exam, if you analyse the various questions, there's 15 questions all told, many of them just ask you to regurgitate lists. These lists sometimes are lifted straight from the textbook, so you've got to memorise your lists. You've got to know your sequences. You've got to know the steps to things as well. So, for example, you've got to know the 5 steps to carrying out a disciplinary interview. You've got to know the sequences involved in motivating people. You've got to know the lists involved in the team building, Belbin team models. It's all about lists and steps. So make sure that you write these down from your textbook and you memorise all these lists. Very useful tip, that one for you. Don't rely on experience. Many people do with this exam. You're coming from a sales management supervisory position, maybe a T&C, maybe compliance. And many people rely on their experience. The big problem here is that you may have experience, but your language you use is very, very different to the language of the examiners. So bear in mind that we use generic language in the examination, not the acronyms or language that you use. And your experience, although useful, isn't actually going to be an awful lot of help when it comes to answering the questions in the exam. Odd one, that, but don't get rid of your experience, but don't rely upon it. Apply the theory to the job. Now, this is a tip really that makes you think about the questions that you get. Many questions will ask you to regurgitate a particular model or a particular aspect of the syllabus. Then good questions ask you to apply that theory to the job involved. So it might ask you to list the ADARE team aspects of ADARE, so team, individual and task. Then it might give you a little context where you have to use these in order to manage people effectively. So remember, it's not just about theory of the exam. A lot of it's about applying it to the job, which makes it actually a really interesting paper, which you'll find so when you study the exam in detail. Plenty of space. Now, this is an exam tip for you. It's a written exam, as you're probably aware. Now, it may have been a long time since you last did your last written paper, but if you can't remember it, you remember that you have to write down your answers. Now, the paper they give you is plentiful. Ask for more very quickly if you wish to, and then spend a whole page of the paper with one question. You'll have 15 questions, so we suggest, therefore, you use 15 pages. Now, the reason for this, as you can appreciate, is it's easy to flip backwards and forwards to cover off previous questions if you remember things later on. But it also allows you space in between the different parts of the questions, and it allows the examiner, of course, space to make their marks as well. So very useful to leave lots and lots of space, a page per question. Always a good suggestion, that one. Google videos, or YouTube as we know them, is a very useful resource when you're studying, particularly if you're looking at the very generic models. All told, there's about 20 different models that cover in the exam, not just in the leadership chapter. And if you go on YouTube and Google them, you'll find some really good videos. You'll find some pretty awful ones too. You might find some of mine, and you can judge those if you want to. That's paularcher.tv, by the way, if you want to find my YouTube channel. And in this YouTube, of course, you can find videos, cartoons, all about the different models. It's a great way of studying rather than just reading the book as well. Bullets are good. When it comes to writing the answers down to the examination, we don't want paragraphs. In fact, we don't want sentences. We don't want you sort of rambling on a whole page. We want bullets. We want lists. We love bullets. We love graphs. We love tables. We love pictures where necessary. We don't want paragraphs. If you start doing that, you're probably going to end up failing the exam. Bulleted lists are exactly what the exam requires. And you'd be amazed, actually, once you've had the training, how little you actually write in order to get full maximum marks. Pareto's Law, famous Italian economist, probably heard of it, 80-20 rule. Now, the 80-20 rule comes about with the exam itself. When you start applying yourself to each question, in the first 20% of your time, you'll earn 80% of the marks. So if you find yourself dawdling or spending too much time on a question, you're probably not earning very many marks. Remember, in the first 20% of the time you spend on the paper, you'll get most marks, 80% of your marks. It's only after that you start scraping the barrel, as we call it. So move on. If you find yourself scratching your head for answers, move on to the next question, and that might even remind you of stuff to do later. And it's a good idea to go back through all the questions afterwards and add some extra things as well. They have this thing called positive marking, so you can add as much as you like. Descriptors. Get to know the words used in the questions. We go through this in the examination revision course that we run. Know your lists, know your explains, know your briefly explains, know your outlines, know your states. They all mean different things, and you need to get to grips with those. Really useful idea, that one. There's my contact details if you want to talk to me later about any of the training that we offer, particularly the revision course. I've given you the top 10 tips here to help you pass the examination. I hope you found it all useful, and we'll speak very soon.